My name is Ethan Cole. I'm 33 years old, a civil engineer working in Austin, Texas. For 2 years, I shared an apartment and what I thought was a future with Rachel Moore, a 29-year-old marketing coordinator I met through mutual friends. She was smart, funny, and we seemed to want the same things: a stable life, no drama, just two people building something real together. I'm not the type to chase fairy tales. I'm practical. I analyze structures for a living, calculate loads, assess risks. I apply that same logic to my personal life. Rachel seemed like a solid choice. We split rent, cooked together on weekends, talked about maybe buying a house in a few years. It wasn't passionate fireworks every day, but it was comfortable, reliable, or so I believed. One Sunday morning in early March 2025, I was in the kitchen making coffee. The apartment smelled like brewing dark roast, and I was planning to spend the day reviewing blueprints for a commercial project downtown. Rachel walked in holding something in her hand. A pregnancy test. Positive. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new, unreleased stories here every day, each one more intense than the last. My first reaction should have been joy, or at least surprise. Instead, I felt my stomach drop because of the look on her face. She wasn't smiling. She was nervous, scared even. "I need to tell you something," she said, setting the test on the counter between us. "I'm pregnant, but I don't know if it's yours." The words hung in the air like a wrecking ball suspended above everything we'd built. I set down my coffee mug carefully, buying myself 3 seconds to process what I'd just heard. "What do you mean you don't know?" I asked. My voice came out calm, flat, no anger, not yet. She looked down. "There's someone at work, Kyle. It just happened a few times. I'm so sorry, Ethan. I don't know what I was thinking, but now I'm pregnant and I honestly don't know who the father is." Kyle. I'd heard that name before. Married guy, worked in her department, always showing up in her work stories. "When did this start?" I asked. "About 4 months ago," she admitted. It wasn't serious. It didn't mean anything. 4 months. Nearly a sixth of our entire relationship, and it didn't mean anything. I stood there looking at the woman I'd trusted completely, and I realized I didn't know her at all. The floor beneath me felt unstable, like standing on a structure with hidden faults in the foundation. But here's what I learned about myself in that moment. I don't explode. I don't yell. I calculate. When a building shows cracks, you don't just patch them. You investigate the root cause. You document everything. You plan the demolition carefully. "We'll do a paternity test," I said simply. "Once the baby is born, or we can do a prenatal one if you want." Rachel looked almost relieved. I think she expected rage, accusations, a dramatic breakup scene. Instead, I gave her nothing. No emotion, no reaction she could work with or manipulate. Just a practical solution stated in a neutral tone. "Okay," she said quietly. "Thank you for being so understanding." Understanding. That's what she called it. I nodded and walked out of the kitchen, went to our bedroom and closed the door. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall for 20 minutes, feeling everything and nothing at the same time. Then I opened my laptop and started making a list. The first thing I did was secure my finances. Monday morning, during my lunch break, I opened a new bank account at a different institution. Over the next 2 weeks, I gradually transferred my money out of our joint account, leaving only my half of the shared expenses. I kept records of every transaction, every deposit, every bill payment, documentation, always documentation. I contacted a family law attorney named Patricia Hernandez. Her office was in downtown Austin, a small firm that specialized in paternity cases. I paid $400 for a consultation and told her everything. "Texas law is clear," she explained, leaning back in her leather chair. "If you're married, there's a presumption of paternity. But you're not married, which actually works in your favor. If the child isn't biologically yours, you have no legal obligation. However, you need to make sure you don't sign anything. Don't sign the birth certificate. Don't acknowledge paternity in writing. And most importantly, don't let her establish you as the father in any legal capacity. What if she tries to list me anyway? I asked. Then you can test it immediately with DNA evidence. But the key is prevention. You need that test done as soon as possible, and you need the results documented properly. I can recommend a certified lab that the courts recognize. I left her office with a clear action plan. Patricia gave me the contact information for an AABB-accredited lab that could perform non-invasive prenatal paternity testing as early as 9 weeks into the pregnancy. Cost around $1,800, but it would give us answers months before the birth, and the results would hold up in any court proceeding. I told Rachel about it that evening. "There's a test we can do now," I said over dinner. "It's just a blood draw from you, safe for the baby. We can know in about 10 business days." She hesitated. "That's expensive, isn't it?" "I'll pay for it," I said. "I need to know, Rachel. I think you understand that." She agreed. We scheduled the appointment for the following week. During those days, I watched her carefully. She'd become almost apologetic, cooking my favorite meals, asking about my day at work with genuine interest. It was like she was auditioning for the role of devoted girlfriend, trying to erase 4 months of betrayal with 2 weeks of performance. I played along. I was pleasant, cordial. I came home at my usual time, watched TV with her in the evenings, even laughed at her jokes. But inside, I was building a case. I'd already accessed our shared cloud storage and downloaded every photo, every conversation thread I could find. I went through her laptop one afternoon while she was at the gym. She'd left it open, logged into her personal email. There they were, messages between her and Kyle going back to late October 2024, flirty texts that escalated into explicit exchanges, plans to meet during lunch breaks at a hotel near their office. A Holiday Inn off Interstate 35, just south of downtown, room 214, charged to his credit card. They'd been there at least 6 times based on the message timestamps. I took screenshots of everything, saved them to an encrypted folder on my personal drive. I didn't feel guilty about the invasion of privacy. She'd already invaded something far more sacred, the trust that held our relationship together. The test appointment came. We drove to the lab in silence. Rachel seemed nervous, fidgeting with her phone. I kept my eyes on the road, driving my Ford F-150 through morning traffic. The phlebotomist drew 2 vials of blood from Rachel's arm and swabbed the inside of my cheek. The whole process took 15 minutes. "Results in 7 to 10 business days," the technician said, handing me a receipt. "We'll email them to both addresses you provided." While we waited for those results, I made more moves. I contacted our landlord, a retired veteran named Mr. Patterson who owned the duplex we rented. Our lease was month to month after the first year. "I need to give you notice," I told him over the phone. "I'll be moving out at the end of April." "Everything okay, Ethan?" he asked. "You've been a good tenant." "Just need a change," I said. "Personal reasons." "Understood. I'll need it in writing, but I appreciate the heads up." I sent the formal notice that afternoon. Then I started apartment hunting. I found a 1-bedroom place in South Austin near Zilker Park, smaller than what Rachel and I shared, but it was mine alone. The rent was $1,600 a month, manageable on my salary of $92,000 a year. I put down a deposit of $3,200, first month, last month, and security, and signed a lease to start May 1st. I also backed up all my personal belongings digitally. Scanned important documents, photographed anything with sentimental value, made sure I had copies of everything that mattered. I wasn't taking chances. If this went sideways, I wanted to be able to walk out with nothing but a suitcase and still have everything I needed. At work, I kept my focus. My current project was a mixed-use development with ground-floor retail and 4 stories of apartments above it. The structural calculations required precision. One mistake in the load-bearing wall specifications could compromise the entire building. I found the work almost meditative during those weeks. Problems with clear solutions, numbers that didn't lie, forces that behaved according to predictable laws of physics. Unlike human beings, Rachel asked me one evening if I was okay. We were sitting on the couch, some Netflix show playing that neither of us was really watching. "You've been quiet lately," she said. "Just thinking about the test results," I replied. "Should hear back any day now." "What if it's not yours?" she asked softly. "What happens then?" I looked at her, really looked at her. She seemed genuinely worried, maybe even regretful. But I couldn't find it in myself to care anymore. "Then we'll deal with that when we know for sure," I said. What I didn't say, I'd already dealt with it. I'd already moved on. I was just waiting for the paperwork to confirm what I already knew in my gut. The email arrived on a Thursday afternoon in late March. I was at a construction site reviewing the foundation work for the project when my phone buzzed. Subject line: Paternity test results, case number PT47392. I stepped away from the crew, walked to my truck, and opened the attachment. The document was 3 pages long, full of technical language about genetic markers and probability calculations. But the conclusion was clear, printed in bold at the bottom of page 2. The alleged father, Ethan Cole, is excluded as the biological father of the unborn child. Probability of paternity, 0%. I sat in the driver's seat and stared at those words for a full minute. 0%. Not a single doubt, not even a margin of error. The child Rachel was carrying had absolutely nothing to do with me. I forwarded the results to my attorney with a time-stamped email, creating a legal record of the findings. Then I texted Rachel. "Results came in. We need to talk tonight." She replied immediately. "Okay, I'll be home by 6. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I texted her again at 5. "Change of plans, read the email I just sent you." I'd forwarded her the paternity results with a simple message. "The test confirms the child is not mine. I'm moving out this weekend." The next day, Friday afternoon, I left work early and stopped by my new apartment to pick up some boxes I'd been storing there. Then I went back to the duplex and started a process I'd already mentally rehearsed dozens of times. I packed my clothes first, then my books, my tools, my laptop, and electronics. Everything that belonged solely to me. I left the furniture. Most of it we'd bought together, and I didn't want any of it anyway. Each piece would just remind me of the lie I'd been living. By 5:30, my truck was loaded. The apartment looked strange, empty of my presence, but still full of her things. I printed the paternity test results and placed them in the center of the kitchen table. Next to the documents, I set my keys to the duplex. And then I wrote a note on a piece of paper torn from my engineering notebook. "Good luck." 2 words. That's all she deserved. I took one last look around the place I'd called home for 2 years, then walked out and locked the door from the outside. I slipped my copy of the key through the mail slot. Done. I drove to my new apartment and started unpacking. It was therapeutic in a way, building a space that was entirely mine. No compromises, no shared decisions, just my choices. I set up my desk by the window overlooking the park, hung my framed engineering degree on the wall, arranged my books on the shelf. By 9 o'clock, I was sitting on my new couch eating Thai takeout and watching a basketball game on my laptop. My phone rang. Rachel. I let it go to voicemail. She called again and again. 6 calls in 20 minutes. Then the text started. "Ethan, where are you? We need to talk about this. Please don't do this. I know I messed up, but we can work through it. Please just answer me." I blocked her number. I didn't owe her a conversation. The test results said everything that needed to be said. She'd made her choices. Now she could live with the consequences. But I wasn't quite finished. There was still the matter of Kyle, the married man who'd helped destroy my relationship while risking his own. I'd been thinking about this part for weeks, weighing different approaches. I'm not a vengeful person by nature. I don't believe in dramatic confrontations or public humiliation. But I do believe in accountability. I created a new email address through a secure provider, using a VPN to mask my location, completely anonymous and untraceable. Then I compiled a folder of screenshots, the messages between Rachel and Kyle, the hotel receipts I'd found in her email, date-stamped evidence of their affair spanning from late October 2024 through February 2025. I wrote a brief factual summary. No emotional language, no accusations, just a timeline with supporting documentation. Then I sent it to 3 email addresses: the Human Resources Department at Rachel and Kyle's company, Kyle's wife, whose name and contact information I'd found on his Facebook page, and Kyle's direct supervisor, whose email was listed on the company website. The subject line was simple: documentation of workplace affair, Rachel Moore and Kyle Stevens. I hit send and closed the laptop. What happened next was out of my hands. I'd simply provided information to people who had a right to know it. What they chose to do with that information was their decision. I slept better that night than I had in months. The fallout came quickly. I heard about it through a mutual friend who still worked in the same building as Rachel. She called me 3 days after I'd moved out. "Ethan, what the hell happened?" she asked. "Rachel got fired, Kyle got fired. There's this whole scandal at their office about an affair, and someone sent evidence to HR, and now Kyle's wife is filing for divorce, and Rachel is completely falling apart." "I wouldn't know anything about that," I said calmly. "Rachel and I aren't together anymore." "She's been trying to reach you," my friend continued. "She says you disappeared. She's desperate to talk to you." "We don't have anything to talk about," I replied. "The paternity test proved the baby isn't mine. I moved out." "That's the end of the story." "Jesus, Ethan, I didn't know it was that bad." "It was," I said, "but it's over now." I found out more details later through that same friend. Apparently, the HR department at their company had a strict policy against workplace relationships, especially when one or both parties were married or in committed relationships. The evidence I'd provided was thorough enough that they couldn't ignore it. Both Rachel and Kyle were terminated for violation of company ethics policies within 48 hours of HR receiving the email. Kyle's wife, from what I heard, had suspected something but never had proof. The screenshots gave her everything she needed. She'd filed for divorce immediately and was asking for full custody of their 2 kids. Kyle had moved out of their house in Pflugerville and was staying with his brother, trying to figure out how to pay child support and alimony without a job. Rachel had lost her income, her relationship with Kyle, who wanted nothing to do with her once his marriage imploded, and apparently any hope of reconciling with me. She'd sent me dozens of emails before I filtered them all to spam. The few I'd read before blocking her were predictable. Apologies, excuses, promises to change, pleas for another chance. I deleted them all without responding. 3 weeks after I moved out, Rachel showed up at my office. The receptionist called me from the lobby, sounding uncertain. "There's a woman here asking for you," she said. "Rachel Moore? She says it's urgent." I thought about having security escort her out, but I decided to handle it myself. I went downstairs and found her sitting in the waiting area. She looked terrible. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, wearing sweatpants and an oversized hoodie that couldn't quite hide her growing belly. She was visibly pregnant now, probably 4 or 5 months along. Nothing like the put-together marketing professional I'd known. "Ethan," she stood up when she saw me. "Please, I just need 5 minutes." "You need to leave," I said quietly. "We have nothing to discuss." "I lost my job," she said, tears forming. "Kyle won't talk to me. I can't pay rent. I'm pregnant and alone, and I don't know what to do." I looked at her and felt absolutely nothing. No sympathy, no anger. Just empty space where feelings used to be. "That's not my problem, Rachel," I said. "You made your choices. The baby isn't mine. You're not my responsibility. You need to leave now or I'll have to call security." "How can you be so cold?" she asked, her voice breaking. "We were together for 2 years. Doesn't that mean anything?" "It did," I said. "Until you decided it didn't. You threw it away. Not me. Now please go." She left crying. I went back upstairs and returned to work. That was the last time I saw her in person. Over the next few months, I heard occasional updates through the grapevine. Rachel had moved back in with her parents in Houston. Kyle's divorce was moving through the courts and he was working retail at a Target, the only job he could find after being fired for ethics violations. His ex-wife had gotten the house, the kids, and a substantial child support arrangement. He was living in a studio apartment and driving for Uber on weekends to make ends meet. Rachel had the baby in early December 2025. A boy. She named him Connor. I know this because she sent me a birth announcement to my office since she didn't have my new address. I threw it away without reading past the first line. My life, meanwhile, got significantly better. Without the stress of a failing relationship, I threw myself into work. I took on a major infrastructure project, a highway overpass redesign that came with a substantial raise and a promotion to senior engineer. My salary jumped to $108,000 a year. I started going to the gym regularly, lost 15 pounds, and felt healthier than I had in years. I went on a few dates. Nothing serious, but it was good to remember what it felt like to meet someone new without the weight of betrayal hanging over everything. I was cautious, maybe more than I needed to be, but I figured that was better than being naive. One Saturday afternoon in early October, I was at Home Depot picking up supplies for some shelving I was building in my apartment. I ran into Mr. Patterson, my old landlord. "Ethan," he said, looking genuinely happy to see me. "How have you been?" "Good," I said. "Really good, actually. How are things with the duplex?" "Found new tenants right away," he said. "Nice couple, no drama. Unlike your ex-girlfriend. She stopped paying rent in April, left the place in May without notice. Cost me almost $2,500 in cleaning and repairs after she finally cleared out." "Sorry to hear that," I said, though I wasn't surprised. "Not your fault," he said. "You were always solid, paid on time, kept the place clean. If you ever need a reference, I'm happy to provide one." We chatted for a few more minutes, then went our separate ways. As I loaded my truck with lumber and brackets, I thought about how different my life looked now compared to 7 months ago. Better apartment, better job, better peace of mind. All because I'd refused to let emotion override logic when everything fell apart. I learned something important through that whole experience. Revenge doesn't have to be loud or dramatic. Sometimes the most devastating thing you can do is simply remove yourself from someone's life completely. Let them face the natural consequences of their actions without your intervention, support, or presence. I didn't destroy Rachel's life. She did that herself. I just made sure I wasn't caught in the blast radius. The silence, my absence, was more powerful than anything I could have said or done. She'd counted on my stability, my forgiveness, my willingness to be the reliable guy who'd clean up her messes. When I took that away, when I simply disappeared with the evidence in hand and no words wasted, it left her with nothing to argue against. No confrontation to win. No dramatic scene to manipulate. Just cold, documented facts and an empty apartment. Kyle lost his marriage, his kids' daily presence, and his career because he chose to risk everything for someone else's girlfriend. Rachel lost her job, her relationship, her home, and her stability because she tried to have it both ways. I didn't orchestrate that. I just made sure the right people knew the truth. Sometimes justice doesn't require revenge. It just requires documentation and patience. Months later, sitting in my new apartment with the evening light streaming through the windows, I realized that silence had been the loudest form of closure. Not a single word wasted. Not a single scene given. Just the truth, delivered quietly, and a door closed forever. I'm 33 now, still young enough to rebuild everything. Single, successful, and genuinely content with my life. I don't wonder what Rachel's doing or whether Kyle ever got his life back together. I don't check their social media or ask mutual friends for updates. That chapter is closed and I have no interest in reopening it. The lesson I took from all of this is simple. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. Don't make excuses. Don't wait for them to change. Just protect yourself, document everything, and walk away with your dignity intact. I built my life the same way I build structures, on a solid foundation, with careful planning, and with an eye toward long-term stability. Rachel tried to undermine that foundation with lies and betrayal. But foundations don't collapse if they're built right. They hold steady, even when everything above them is shaking. And I'm still standing. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and leave a comment letting me know what you thought. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.